Going to be live streaming here. It's just loading as people are zooming on. Okay, and we're here. Welcome. If you're joining us, we're talking about highly effective teaching in this live this afternoon. I'm Andrea Bright Harrell. I'm one of the communication and operations associates here, and also joined with Ariel Everett, one of our other communication and operations associates. And we've also got another special member of our team, Leslie McTighe. And we're going to be talking about highly effective teaching. What's that mean? What does that look like for us at KCTR and what it looks like in the classroom? So real quick, Ariel, could you just, introduce yourself? I know I already gave a little snippet. Say hello.
Hi, everybody. Like Andrea said, I'm Ariel, and I am one part of the Communications and Operations Associate team here at KCTR. And I've been here now, I think, like 7 months. So it's great.
We love having you.
Yes.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, Leslie, do you want to go into and introduce yourself a little bit more?
Yeah, of course. Hi. Thanks for having me today. I am Leslie McTighe, and I've been here at KCTR for about almost 5 years. And my role is the Director of Curriculum and Programming. And so within that, I also get the opportunity to be a course instructor. So I oversee that work, and I get to teach classes each week, which brings me a lot of joy. So in the program, when you're in KCTR, you are, unlike the traditional model that many of us went through to get into teaching, you are taking your classes and you're in the field for the whole duration of the year. So what I do is to teach classes and oversee that curriculum and make sure that what folks are learning is able to be applied at their placement sites, at their clinical sites.
We love having you on our team, and I know residents would definitely concur with that, leading the way on their learning and strategy of teaching, and then they get to apply that in the classroom. It's super exciting. Yep. Well, Ariel, do you want to kick it off with our question here as we dive into some more about highly effective teaching?
Awesome. Well, so my first question is, what is highly effective teaching and why does it matter? And that's my question to you, Leslie. So if you want to give us an answer on that.
Well, I can start with why does it matter? So it matters that you're a highly effective teacher. I think it's pretty straightforward that all our students out there, all kids, deserve to have a great teacher, a great education. For a really, really long time in this country, having a great teacher and having a great education has been highly dependent on where you were born, and oftentimes how wealthy your family has been and what color your skin is, and lots of different factors that shouldn't play a role but do. And so it's important that no matter who you are and where you come from, you get that human right to have a great education and have a great teacher. So it matters, if you're going to go into this profession, that you take that responsibility very seriously. So highly effective teaching, it looks a lot of ways. I think the most effective teachers, first and foremost, they show up as themselves. They're authentic in what they do. That matters a lot. Creating an environment in the classroom where learning can happen through joy and feeling safe, and engagement can happen through ideas and with the people around you, so that you can learn about your world and learn about the world and have skill set and mindset when you finish your school journey, that sets you up so that you can navigate the world, and you can find that happiness and prosperity that I think like all human beings want to find. Education is a part of the human trajectory, and so what we experience now impacts us forever. So being a teacher is a huge responsibility, but it's happening all around us. Highly effective teaching is going on all around us. And I just get excited every time I get to interact with the teachers in KCTR, and the teachers who've been through the program, because there is so much highly effective teaching going on all around us. It's really exciting.
Yeah, no, that's a great first intro, to this concept. It's something that we talk a lot about at KCTR, but it might not be something like that. Phrasing might not be something that the general population utilizes it in their everyday language, but really honing in on, we want to not just prepare bodies to be in the classroom, but being an educator is such an important role, and we want people to be excelling at that for the good of kids. And like that's what we're trying to focus on. And what does that actually look like then? So you started to talk about a few elements of like why it's important, what it looks like, and I'd love for you to chat a little bit more specifically around one framework that we've utilized around the achievement triangle with Gary Howard's work. So we know it's really imperative that teachers know not just their craft, but also themselves and their students. So we just kind of want to dive a little deeper into each of those topics that the achievement triangle talks about. So just starting first with knowing yourself. How does knowing yourself impact your teaching? We know knowing your content impacts your teaching because you have to know what you're talking about, but how does that connect for people who maybe aren't in the classroom? Help draw those lines for them.
Right. So knowing yourself, it's just a fundamental core requirement for being a great teacher, is knowing yourself. I mean, we all walk our own path, no matter where we come from, where we live, what we do. And I think I said this before, but like being your authentic self in no matter what you do. If you're not there and if you're not being that, then you're never going to be as good at what you're doing as you could be, if you weren't true to yourself and who you are. And so, having that level of like self-awareness, of who you are, especially, we work in, particularly at KCTR, we have like diverse settings. Our schools are demographically diverse, linguistically diverse. So knowing how you show up in those spaces, how you're perceived, how you perceive others, knowing what your strengths are, knowing what your challenges are, knowing what your biases are, having a level of self-awareness at all times. You can't really get to know your students. You can't get to know the community, unless you have that strong level of awareness. And it's part of that lasting impact. So what we experience as kids and students in classrooms, I mean, these things stay with us forever, whether it's like vivid in our memories and our consciousness, or whether it's like something that we've stored away and it just has this lasting impact on us. So just knowing how you show up, and the impact that has on other people, is really critical at getting good at teaching, and also your ability to like sustain and be able to stay in the profession. That authenticity has to be there, or you're going to burn out pretty quick.
That's so great. And then what I'm hearing a lot of what you're saying is education is not just some disembodied act of like implanting information into these students. Like, you're a person, students are people, and that shared humanity, you have to know yourself in order to engage. It's not just facts being transferred. It's not. That's super helpful. Ariel,
yeah.
And
No, I would go ahead, Leslie. Were you going to say anything else? I'm sorry.
No,
Oh,
no.
okay. Well, yeah, I mean, like Andrew said, like, and you mentioned as well that like you knowing your impact and that being impactful as far as knowing yourself. And so with knowing yourself, obviously you have to know your craft as well. And I think that those two kind of go hand in hand because if you know yourself, your craft is only going to get better and better over time. And so most people, you know, they assume that you just need to know content in order to
Right.
teach. And we know that it's way more. I mean, you explained what highly effective teaching is and knowing yourself already. But there is a lot more that goes into your craft than just knowing the facts. So in your professional opinion, what all goes into teaching and really knowing your craft and kind of, I guess, like working that in with knowing yourself as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you're only going to get better at your craft when you like have that level of awareness of like what you know and what you don't know and being open to getting better, and being able to reflect. I mean, that's a big like word that we use in education a lot. Like you have to be a reflective practitioner in order to get better at what you do. And I would say that I would argue that that's necessary, as I was saying, like no matter what you do, being reflective in your practice. So yeah, I think, you were saying something like that, Ariel, like it's not enough to just know your content. You have to know your content. If you're going to teach, fifth grade math, or you're going to teach first graders how to read, you have to know those things really well. But I use that word craft. I really stick to that word over content because it's knowing what to teach and knowing how to teach it, and being open to getting better with that over time. If any graduates are out there or current residents are out there, they know that one of the questions that I always ask in Summer Institute, and I just put this out there as a question just to cause thinking, is teaching an art or is teaching a science? And that always leads to some really great discussion about, whether you think one or the other. I actually will frame it as like, do you think this, that, neither, both? And that leads to some really great discussion. But I do always land the plane with, we know that learning and how our brains process information and store information and transfer information and make meaning out of new ideas, that is like well rooted in science. Learning can be looked at as a science. And so because learning is a science, a lot of people have the misconception that teaching then can reciprocate that and be that same way. And I strongly argue that because learning is a science, teaching needs to be an art. We have to be flexible. We have to be responsive. We have to change what we're doing based on changes in our students and changes in the world around us. And the more we learn about our content and craft, things change. So I really firmly believe that, teaching requires a level of artistry simply because of how much interpretation is involved and how much how much responsiveness is needed just based on what you're doing and who your students are. There's no handbook for teaching, and a lot of people come into the program and they really want things to be clear cut. This is how you do it. Here's the formula. E = MC squared. And it is not like that. It is your craft has to really be developed over time. The who, the what, the when, the why, the how, all these things change so rapidly. The education world is constantly updating based on data and research and just so much out there. So everything changes so rapidly. So again, I've said it like several times now, like responsiveness is really key, but also staying true to what you know works. My mantra before March of 2020 was, how do you teach when the lights go out? When you don't have that computer, when you don't have your smart board, when you don't have the internet, when you don't have all of these things at your disposal that like teachers in the 21st century take for granted, what are you going to do? How are you going to teach your kids? You're going to have to be good at it without all those things. And then, of course, we got hit with the pandemic, and all we had were computers and devices and the internet and Zoom and all these things. And I thought, oh my gosh, I've been wrong about this all this time. But really, like, it almost like solidifies it for me even more, because we know how hard that was on teachers and kids. And we can't go down a path of education that's like exclusively in that way. So again, I think like knowing your craft and being good at what you're doing, and thinking about how do you work through that when you don't have every tool at your disposal. Those are just some key things that I try to, relay to all the new teachers out there.
I love that, the idea of learning as a science, therefore teaching needs to be an art to adapt and be responsive to those student needs. That was the next thing I was going to ask you about. The final piece of the achievement triangle is about knowing your students. And so you've already kind of teased into that, of in order to adapt to the context you're in, whether that's, COVID, we're virtual, or hybrid, or, kids are quarantined, or whatever context you're in. But there's also about knowing the students specifically and adapting content and your practice and craft towards them. You want to talk about that a little bit more, and what that looks like to differentiate for those students?
Sure. Yeah, it's almost impossible to talk about that in isolation when we talk about, like what is good teaching, and what's the impact of knowing ourselves, and what's the impact of knowing our craft. It's like impossible to leave that student piece out of that. But
Sure.
When you think about, knowing your students and what does that look like? I mean, learning is a very social act. It's best done in communion with others. Yet, making meaning is so personal. So we have to keep those things in consideration. And like what, we get new students. I mean, the typical teacher gets, 25 new students a year. If you're in high school, you get 100 new students every year. It's not that easy to get to know your students like at a deep level when they pass through your classrooms, every 9 months or so. But you can get to know them. You can get to know them in different ways. You have to get to know about, what their life is like at home. You're never going to know all those details. But if your student is coming into the classroom with one reality, and you're coming into the classroom with another reality, you're never going to really connect with them or leverage the opportunity for them to learn in a way that you could if you don't know them. So the little things, it's something we start out every year with. Let's do a student interest survey. Let's just find out a little bit who they are. Know who, do they have brothers and sisters in the school? When you can tell a kid and ask a kid, how's your little brother doing? And you can call that student by name. I mean, that is huge for relationship building, and creating that sense of belonging in the classroom. That is, it's imperative for somebody to be able to learn and be able to grow in that environment. They have to have that sense of belonging. So getting to know your student and finding those ways to let them know that, like, hey, I see you, I know you, you do belong here. Getting to know them as a learner, getting to know them as a human, getting to know them as a family member, as a community member, as a school member. All of those things are going to get you to a place where you can build a relationship with a kid, which is only a means to an end. You know, we want our students to be successful in school and have a good attitude about school and feel like, you know what, school is for me. I maybe didn't do so great on that quiz or that homework assignment, or I maybe got the answer wrong, but like, I feel like I belong here. My teacher feels like I belong here and lets me know that. So I'm going to keep trying. I'm going to keep working at, you know, my own education. And it's really about leveraging them through those relationships and through getting to know them so that they can take that ownership over their learning and for being in school, which is the transferable thing that is going to have that lasting impact on them. So it's really getting to know your students is critical, because it's not the end game, it's the means to the end.
I love that. And it's not in a way that's like a fake or demeaning of them of, oh, I just want to get to know you so that you do well in this test. It's a genuine, authentic desire to know them as a human, but that's not all that there is, just so that they think, oh, Miss McTighe is nice, or, you know, like that they they can actually excel and engage in their learning. That's huge.
Absolutely.
And I know that you know, a lot of what you mentioned with having a relationship and knowing your students. My next question for you, kind of a little bit around that, but also just like, do you think that there are any misconceptions that you want to debunk about teaching and what makes a good teacher? I know that there's a couple that like I've heard and I've gone to bat for teachers, and like the importance of having teachers and great teachers. And so what are some of those, like those misconceptions, or if you have any, that you want to debunk right here, right now? We're putting it all out there. And this is going to be what you say is gold. I already know it.
Don't set me up, Ariel, for something.
Setting you up.
No pressure, Leslie, but
no pressure, but like, I know I can feel the vibes already.
No, I think there's a lot of misconceptions about teaching. I think, you know, one misconception about teaching is that it takes a really long time to get good. And I will say, plug for KCTR, I think when you are able to go through a program like this, where you are getting to learn and practice simultaneously, and you have the support of a mentor, and you have the support of a coach, you know, you have an opportunity to get good real fast. So again, you know, I'm sure that happens outside of programs like ours, but maybe not quite as much. But you can, when you get the opportunity to have that kind of mentorship and learn and practice simultaneously, I think you can get good at teaching pretty quick. And I say that because there's proof in the pudding. I mean, we have teachers out there who came in at entry level with like really no experience, like working with kids, didn't really know that much. They had that internal desire to like impact kids, and they just wanted to be a teacher, and they're really good. And it didn't take that long for them to get good. So I think if you're hesitant in any way, there are programs like KCTR that can help you grow a lot really fast. So, you know, that's one. I think another misconception that I don't get excited about this misconception, but I think it's true. I mean, you know, teachers can't be everything to every kid. We don't have enough gas in the tank on an ongoing basis to be able to sustain that kind of mentality. We can be a lot for our students and for our families. And the better we are at teaching, the better that's going to be. But in order to have the kind of lasting impact that so many of us want to have, and that's why we got into teaching in the first place, we have to really realize that. And it's really easy to say, you know, in contrast to that, well, we can leave our we can just leave work at work, because that's really, really difficult to do. So, finding that balance is not easy. And it does take some time, but you kind of have to realize that, or you're going to burn out really quick. I think also, a misconception is that I can implement like research-based, evidence-based, like highly effective teaching strategies. And that's going to be, what does it for my students? Or I have like a curriculum that has been vetted and has like 5 stars, and we have this top-notch curriculum with all these resources. And so that's everything I'm going to need for my students. You are the linchpin. You are the teacher. You can be a phenomenal teacher who doesn't have any great resources or curriculum to work at and work with. And you can have an abundance of those things, and be a really crappy teacher at the same time. So I think it really is like you are the human centerpiece there, who really makes a difference in how students engage in what they have and how they engage with those ideas and make sense of their world. Those would be things that I would say.
I want to connect back the second thing you said, I think, about, being all things to all students. I think that ties back to one of the first things you said about knowing yourself, of knowing I do have limits, being in education. It's impossible for me to think that I will be able to be all things to 100 students if you're in high school, but what can you provide? And then what do you need in order to show up to that full capacity that you do have to offer? So without that, you can't even give what you might want to give. It's all just this like
long game
together.
It's the long game. If you want to burn out in a few years and have regrets and whatnot, and like, oh, I could have done it, but I don't know, that's one thing. But if this is what you're really passionate about, you do have to really think about your long-term sustainability, and you're going to impact more people that way.
Yeah. So we've talked kind of in some theory talk about highly effective teaching, what it looks like, some things that people might misunderstand about education. If you were going to blast out one message to every pre-teacher who's about to head towards an education degree program, what's one thing that you would tell them? Maybe it is just emphasizing one of those misconceptions, and setting their focus towards the truth, or there might be some other little nugget that you have to offer. But what's one thing you'd tell someone who wants to become a teacher or is about to become an educator?
I would tell them to do it. There's so many other things that you can do. There's some old anecdote, like those who can do, those who can't teach. That is a bunch of crap. Teaching is a really hard job. So you do have to be, ready for that. It's a huge responsibility. There's a moral responsibility. You have to become great at your craft. So if you're thinking about it, do it. We need you. And at the end of the day, join KCTR, because like I said, thinking back to when I became a teacher, I went through a pretty great program, I thought, and I still do, but I did not have the opportunity to learn and practice at the same time, like you do in KCTR. I didn't have coaching. I didn't have mentorship. I had a really, really nice principal who gave me a thumbs up and said, keep going. And that was really, really hard. But teaching it's at the end of the day, it warms your soul. It does feel really good when you know that this is right for you. And even though it can be really hard, those little connections that you make with students and families, and when you see the light bulb go off, that is a real thing. It is a real thing to watch that happen. And it does fill you with purpose. I think that's a big theme in our country right now, and maybe even outside of our country, is, things shifted with this pandemic, and a lot of people out there don't feel happy going back into the same jobs that they had before because of a lack of purpose and mission and feeling connected to what you're doing. And teaching, like I've said so many times, can be really hard. It is a great profession, long term. I mean, there's just a lot that it has to offer, and we need great teachers. And if you're thinking about doing it, you should do it.
Awesome. Like Nike, we just do it. So we're there. My next question is, you mentioned KCTR already. And we all work at KCTR, of course.
Right.
But of course. And we've talked about theories, as Andrea said. But what do you do to prepare teachers in order to engage them in highly effective teaching? I mean, you've given us so many nuggets, but what is something that you feel like you do to prepare them here at KCTR? What do we do? What do you do? Kind of lean in on that a little bit.
Yeah. So, I mean, surface level, I set up an opportunity for all of our residents to come together each week to engage in like what we know to be like highly effective. We'll say that word for the 100th time. Highly effective practices that do work and can help you to, implement good teaching in the classroom. So we bring people together each week. And again, they have this amazing opportunity to be learning and practicing all at the same time. So the most important part of my job, I feel, is to give them an opportunity to dig into these theories and dig into these ideas and to practice them right away, and help to like bridge that communication between what they're doing and how that happens in the classroom. And not just that, but like how what's happening in the classroom relates back to, these theories and ideas that we learn when we come together in our coursework each week. So really helping to make that bridge so that they can see these things in real time, they can reflect on them in real time, and they can understand. I say this so many times throughout the year. I know they've probably gotten sick of it already. And it's only, the end of the fall semester, but we focus so heavily on the process over the product. It does take a while for your product to get better. And when I say product, I mean, you plan a lesson, you implement it, you teach it, you write, like I said, you write a lesson, or you write a unit of study, or you plan on something. The product is not always going to be the way that you want it to be. But if you can walk away feeling like, I know that there's a process here that I can follow and I can practice over the course of my career, really, and refine that, that's what I really want people to walk away with, is having an understanding of how does some of these processes and theories work, and I can hone them and get better at them over time. We talk about it. We have plenty of opportunity for discussion and reflection, where they can see each other on a weekly basis. They get really tight knit over Summer Institute. And then they go into different placement sites. So this one day a week where they all come to seminar is a big deal, so that these relationships can stay strong, and they can talk about what's going on, and make those connections, and help each other make that bridge between their practice and what they're learning.
I love that. And, as Ariel said, yes, we are all at KCTR and believe in this model and are excited by it. By no means do we think this is the only way to become an effective teacher, but we do believe that our model does work really well for creating highly effective teachers. And you've already sort of pointed out and tugged at a few specific things about our program, but are there any specific things that you want to lift out further, Leslie, that get you really excited about creating effective teachers, like a piece of the programming or curriculum that you think is really unique and special about KCTR?
I think our, our emphasis on like ideally like facilitating a cohort, like creating an environment, creating a space, providing a space where a network of teachers, a group of people can come together on a regular basis and learn together. Of course, that's not like entirely unique to KCTR, but it is like a strong emphasis of our program, because one of the keys to sustainability and staying in this profession is that you have people, you have your tribe, you have your folks that you can lean into when times get hard. And I think that's one of the things that KCTR does the best, is that we create an environment where we nurture that, and we expect that, and we want you to be able to come and it be a safe place where you feel like you belong and you can learn and you can fail alongside other people, and they will help you get right back up on your feet. And we what's that?
Nope. Sorry. My audio was bouncing back towards
Oh,
you.
no, that's okay. I do want to name like another thing that I just get really excited about is just our goals for diversifying the teacher pipeline as well. I have been, working in Kansas City for a long time and have always been, in a sea of white teachers teaching with, mostly students of color. And so to be a part of KCTR, where we are purposefully recruiting teachers of color to come in and be a part of this profession, gets me excited every day, and to see more and more teachers of color coming into the program, because representation matters. And I just get really excited that that's a part of who we are at KCTR, and to see that our students have highly effective teachers of all walks of life, but particularly increasing that representation among teachers of color is something that I care deeply about at KCTR.
Yes. Thanks for highlighting those two things, the residency model, being in that cohort, and recruiting more diverse teachers. We definitely need it, and we're here to support. So if you're thinking about becoming a teacher and want support, you should definitely consider KCTR.
Definitely.
We may or may not be a little biased, but
Just a little.
But we really think this is a great option for a lot of people that you should consider. As we round out, we're just going to ask some rapid fire questions here, Leslie. So just quick off the top, what comes to your head in asking these questions, and then we'll round out.
Okay.
So Leslie, who is your favorite teacher that you ever had?
Oh my gosh, I had some great teachers. Mr. Flournoy, if you're out there, I can still see your face and your left-handed arm at the board like this, and helping us dissect little piglets and things like that. And he was my science teacher, and I was never good in that class. Science was not my forte, but Mr. Flournoy had a smile on and a joke and a laugh and a song every single day. So he made me feel like I was still, pretty good.
Awesome. So my question is, what is your favorite teacher accessory? If you have to leave out of the house and you have to have that one thing, it has to come with you as a teacher, what would that be?
That chart paper with the sticky back. So when I first started teaching, you had to rip the chart paper off the, the ringed binder, out of your old school notebook, and then get a piece of tape and stick it up on the wall. And now it's like a sticky note. I'm addicted to that paper. And so I have my special markers in my paper, and I have to have those at all times.
For some reason, I'm not surprised by that, Leslie. I can see it. It's a good one though.
Yeah.
What was your favorite part about teaching in the classroom? I know you still teach and facilitate our teachers, but when you were teaching younger students, what was your favorite part?
It's so hard to boil that down. My favorite part about teaching was reading aloud to my kids every day. We would come in from recess. I would get out the book. They would come and they would like get their little pillows and lay on the carpet, and I would read to them, and they would beg me not to stop every single day. And it was just like our favorite part of the day. And I get to read to my kids at home, which is wonderful. But I do miss being in the classroom. And I know it's like super cliche, but like you literally do see light bulbs go off in kids' faces and their brains light up. And like there's just I just like I have goosebumps just like thinking about it, because it's such a special thing to be a part of that, and to know that like you played a role in somebody like figuring something out and making a connection. It's just, nothing can replace that.
Definitely. You're bringing some nostalgia to me. I'm like sitting on the carpet. That's me.
I know. It's so great.
So I guess, well, my last question for you is, what is your favorite part now about teaching adults? Because you're not teaching the kids anymore, but now you're molding adult minds.
Yeah. Well, that's a tough question too, because there's so many things that I love about it. First of all, I love that I'm still teaching, because at the end of the day, like I love to teach, and I love to be in an environment where like learning is taking place and people are discovering things and talking about ideas. I was like in the business world for like literally like a hot second, and I was like, oh no, no, no. I want to be in a place where people are thinking and learning and talking about ideas. And so with adults, it really can be just as great. I think what I love the most about it is that I know that I left the classroom, and so I know that I'm not there like having an impact on kids in a direct way, but the fact that I get to teach and learn alongside these developing educators, and knowing that they are all going out into their classrooms, and just the ripple effect of the whole experience, I am like so grateful for the role that I get to play. Sometimes I just pinch myself. I'm like, is this really my job? Because this is like an amazing job. And these people are fantastic. The people who come into KCTR are just like top notch. And it's a privilege and an honor to get to work with the residents at KCTR. It really is.
Oh, that's so sweet. And so glad to hear. Yeah. You may not be directly in a classroom with students, but you're impacting all the teachers who are about to be in classrooms with students. That impact.
And I never take that for granted. That's a huge responsibility and a huge level of influence that I have. And I never take that for granted. It's a big deal. And I'm just honored to be a part of KCPR.
Awesome.
Thanks, Leslie. It's been so great to chat with you. Thanks for sharing some of your knowledge and insight. We'll wrap up for today, but if you have any other questions, if you're out there watching this video, leave a comment, or you can send us an email at info@kcteach.org, and we can get you more information about our program, Highly Effective Teaching, and what it looks like here at KCTR. But for now, we'll close out. Thanks again. It's been great to chat with you.
Thanks, Andrea. Thanks, Ariel.
No problem. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Bye.
Bye.